So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Dublin's Citizens' Assembly, 25th of June, and our afternoon session on the Limerick experience, lessons learned from Limerick. And we have our guest speaker, Tim O'Connor, the chairman of the Implementation Advisory Group. Really fantastic presentation by Tim. Very inspiring, and I'm really looking forward to the questions that we'll pose to Tim over the next 20 minutes. So we're going to start, please, with table 8, and if you can, please stand us, announce your name and pose your question. So it's table 8, please, and Rachel.
Thank you. Rachel from table 10, the democratically elected spokesperson for this question.
Rachel.
What can we learn from the Limerick experience to make Dublin process speedier and more efficient in this regard? And what unique challenges do you think Dublin would bring that Limerick would not have had to consider? And I think we're referencing the time frame of 10 years in, Limerick still don't have a directly elected mayor.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Directly elected, congratulations, you have your mandate. I suppose, well, first of all, 10 years. First of all, Rachel, the actual, in fairness, the Limerick process specifically really just only started in 2019 with the plebiscite. I know it's been talked about for a long time, but the actual process has actually moved pretty speedily by the standards of these things. So you had the first was there was legislation with the concept, and then there was the plebiscite at the local elections in 2019. There were plebiscites in Cork, Waterford and Limerick, and the people of Cork and Waterford and their wisdom said no thanks, and the people of Limerick said yes. And that then led to the next step then was the creation of this my group, the Implementation Advisory Group, to, a bit like yourselves, to start putting flesh on the bones of the idea of the concept of directly elected mayor for Limerick. And we took about 10 months to do our work. We started in December 2019, and we finished, I think, in October 2020. Most of it actually was done online because of COVID at that stage. So that's October 2020. So at the moment, that the government have accepted a big chunk of our report, not every part of it, but a big chunk of it, and it's now going through the legislative process, and a draft legislation is well advanced, I am assured. And I just want to say, so there's a fair bit of momentum, and with all going well, I would hope that that legislation might be through by the end of the year, early next year, with a view to an election of the first directly elected mayor in Limerick next year. So that's reasonably, by the scale of these, is not too bad. And I did want to, something I didn't say in my remarks, but I just say the minister at the moment who's driving is Peter Burke, who's the Minister of State with Darragh O'Brien, but Peter Burke is very committed to this as well. So I would say to you that my sense of the minister and the officials are, as the official said, we've been talking about this for 20 years, for a long time. So I think there's a determination now to press on with it. And so your work and what you bring out here will be very important as part of that momentum. But I think, and the other thing I would say to you is that, I don't know what the councillors feel, but my sense is there's quite a degree of cross-party support across the House of the Oireachtas for this, which is important as well. So this is an issue that's been around for a long time. There's cross-party support. I think it's in the programme for government, so there is a momentum behind that as well to do it. So I think your work is really, really important, because that's going to kick off the Dublin process. And certainly from my experience in Limerick, once the process starts, it then keeps moving. And we're very much at we're very much at the, as I say, our hope is that we'll have a directly elected mayor in Limerick next year. The challenges in Dublin, that's a hard question, Rachel, thank you very much. The challenges in Dublin are scale. Your scale is, let's face it, you're several times the size of Limerick. We're 200,000 people in Limerick, 100,000 city, 100,000 in the county. So that's obviously, so your challenges are going to be of scale. But I still feel that it's a decision in principle we have to take. Do we believe that having a directly elected mayor with their electoral mandate, is an advance in terms of good governance? I know I'm not supposed to have opinions maybe here, but I've come to the view that that is actually what's necessary for the next stage. And so in a way, all the rest of it, there's going to be very difficult stuff, very, messy. It's going to be challenging. But sure, look, that's life. We just got to get on with it. And and I keep reminding people, folks, we're not going to the moon here. We're just doing something that a whole bunch of cities around. And by the way, our system is based on the UK system and the British system. 1898 Local Government Act set up the local authorities even before independence. And now the British model has moved on in the meantime. Since 2000, they have mayors now in many places. So it's a risk and it's challenging, but this is not unprecedented. So we need to keep that in mind all the time. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Tim. That's a really important point, and thanks, Rachel, for the question. And a very insightful question from Table 4, leading on from the question from Table 8. So over to you, Janice.
Thanks. Janice from Table 4. And the question we have, and we're glad to get the opportunity to ask a question, is in relation to the lessons from Limerick, just staying on topic, when the advisory group met, there were 69 recommendations. The minister then came in to say that 37 of them would be incorporated either in part or full, but many of those not incorporated seem to be in the realms of the recommended powers and the statutory roles. So we just want to know, what did you take from that, and what lessons then to pass on to us here in Dublin, please?
Yeah, thanks, Janice.
Thanks.
That's a fair question. As I said there in the response to Rachel, the government didn't accept all our proposals. However, they have assured us that just because they weren't accepted in the initial, I am assured that several of our recommendations will be on the table as the process goes through. So just to explain, so it has already been through what's called pre-legislative scrutiny in the Dáil earlier this year. So the Oireachtas Committee on Housing, Local Government and Heritage has already brought forward a report on it. So that and now the bill is the draft legislation called the bill is actually being drafted by the Attorney General's office at the moment. So we're hoping, Janice, that, and then it'll go into the Dáil and Shannon for having been approved by the Cabinet. The bill will go into the Dáil and Shannon for detailed scrutiny. So the bill that's going to come out now is going to be the actual proposal by government based on that. What I'm assured is that other recommendations that we made will be possible to have them kind of considered along the way as well. So 37 or whatever the number is there is not the final word. So look, we're realistic. I mean, we were asked to come up with a report, give it our best shot. That's what we did. It's governments. The government are elected by the people, so it's their right to go with to go with as many as they wish, I guess, at the end of the day. But I think what they have, I think they have very much kept the framework. Can I mention one specific to you, Janice? And I'd like to leave this one with you for your consideration for Dublin. We have a proposal and it is in the government, and the government have accepted it, that for the directly elected mayor, that it includes what we're calling the directly elected mayor implementation forum. And that's a ministerial forum which will be chaired by the Minister for Local Government, with other ministers attending as needed on one side of the table, and the directly elected mayor, in this case Limerick, but eventually Dublin and other places that might get directly elected mayors as well. And that will be a standing ministerial forum of dialogue, formal, structured dialogue between the government and the directly elected mayor, and it will have a permanent secretariat of officials supporting it. So I just say to you, that's an important piece of it. And I mentioned it to Andy Burnham, the mayor of Manchester, there recently, and he said, "Whoa, that's interesting. We don't have that." So can I ask you just to give a bit of consideration to that? Because, and I was telling to some of the colleagues earlier, we learned that from actually the Anglo-Irish Agreement in 1985. Gave the Irish government a consultative role in the running of Northern Ireland for the first time. But it was accompanied by an institutional structure called the Anglo-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, and with a permanent secretariat based in Maryfield in Belfast. Some of you might remember Maryfield. Now, I happened to be an official working in the Irish government in Dublin at the time, so I saw how that process worked. So even though the Irish government only had a consultative role, because you had the institutional framework, the British government had to listen. In those days, the British government did listen to the Irish government. But couldn't resist that. And out of that came very significant legislation over the following years, the fair employment legislation, legislation around parades and so on. So that institutional framework around the relationship between the government and the mayor is actually a really important innovation. So if you're looking for tangible things, I'd strongly recommend you take a look at that. Thanks, Janice.
Thanks, Janice and Table 4. Tim, you're very popular. You have nearly, I'd say, 30 questions in here, so we're not going to get through them all.
Is that the chair quite? Move it on there, Tim.
But please let me assure the Assembly members that we can't get around to everybody in the time we have. We are going to give them, like the previous speakers, we will give those questions to Tim, and we will get answers back from Tim. Can we move on, please, to Table 7, and Oliver, please.
Who's asking the question?
It's Valerie. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, who's that, please? Valerie.
It's Valerie.
It's Valerie. Okay.
Thanks, Valerie.
So I've been nominated. What is the path the legislation is going through in Limerick, and what powers will it give to the elected mayor, or is it hoping to give to the mayor?
Yes. Yeah. So as I say, I think I kind of
I'd have answered Valerie, that, yes. Maybe.
I just very briefly. So, but I think it's important for you to know this is moving, because I think Rachel was concerned there about the speed of things. So I think I do want to leave you with the message, that my certain sense is that there's cross-party support. The Minister, Peter Burke, is really driving this, and it's in programme for government. The other parties in the Dáil are strongly supportive. So, as I was saying, it's at the moment the bill is being drafted in the Attorney General's office. We'd hope that will be completed in the autumn. It goes in then into the Dáil and Shannon, into the committees for detailed examination, and then gets enacted and gets signed by the President, hopefully, and then that clears the way then, Janice, for the first election sometime next year. So this is on a path. This is moving. This isn't just this train, to keep with the train analogy, this train is moving.
Thanks, Tim. We now go to Table 2. Another one of our councillors, Killian, on behalf of Table 2. Sorry, Shane. Shane, yeah. Where you have elected.
Killian.
I'm Killian from
You're the Mayor, Killian, yeah.
I was just hoping that you could speak more on clarifying just what you meant by power sharing, and then how is this negotiated in terms of mandate, means and accountability?
Oh, you asked me the easy questions, Killian. Thank you very much. Very good. Well, you see, and I've lots. There's tremendous experts down there, down at the back now. There, the expert advice group, and Teresa Reedy, my fellow Limerick person, has joined us as well. They will have their expert views on this. I suppose, Killian, what we were trying to get out onto the, and to be honest, by the way, when I say power sharing, that this is a personal view of my own. I made clear that, and it's not in our report as such, actually, so I should make that clear. But it's kind of reflecting I've been doing since that time, and listening to today as well, you can hear it. Like, the dilemma is between the centre and local government. I think we all agree that there are many things that should be best left to the centre to decide. We agree on that. But we also agree, I think, that local government is a very powerful piece of the architecture of the state. And so it's really, because, as we said earlier, this is about the delivery of the best possible delivery of services to the people. And that's, here we are at the beginning of the second century of statehood. There you are. So how do we try and crack that conundrum of the centre and the local? And I think that what we have to try to find a way to get to is leave to the centre, so that the centre the centre is driving policy overall, and that is really important. But it is working in a partnership with the directly elected mayor and the council in terms of the implementation of the policy. Now, Mark, you've heard from other speakers, the Bible, or one of the Bibles in all of this, is the European Charter for Local Self-Government from the Council of Europe. And one of the principles in that is, and I'm sure you've been studying this, is the principle of consultation between the centre and the local. That's why I was talking about that institution, the Anglo-Irish Intergovernmental Conference. So the European Charter is talking about consultation between the centre and the local. So how do we frame that? How do we get that? So I think in our vision, certain powers, and that's going to have to be debated, should be devolved certainly to the local, to the directly elected mayor. But in all other matters that affect the well-being of Limerick, in our case Limerick, or Dublin in your case, then I think the mayor, with the mandate from the people and the power to convene, should have the ability to be able to have the view, so that the mayor. And this is something we have in our Limerick report. The mayor is about the business of everything that affects the well-being of, in our case, Limerick, in your case, Dublin. So that if the mayor is to be about the well-being of everything that affects the well-being of the place, but you can't, it's not feasible that you would devolve all powers to the mayor, and then this is where the power sharing comes in. So I think that's something that just, Gillian, has to be worked through as to what powers should be devolved directly, and then what powers should be remaining at consultative level between the centre and the local, and then work through that. So that's kind of the challenge. And I think that we have to be also open to the reality that, stay with my analogy of the train, that get the train going, you have a certain number of carriages, you can always add carriages. And I think this is an evolution. This is something that is, the big thing here is we've got to get this thing going. And I suppose I go back to say, I'm convinced about the power of the importance of the local. So our job as architects, your job is, how do we get the best local involvement then in the policy making process? So it's no easy answer, Killian, but...
Thanks, Table 2, and Killian, thanks for the question. We've got 5 minutes left with Tim. Table 11, please, and Avian.
Hi, how are you? My name is Avian from Table 11. Our question was just, how do you foresee or suggest managing the fact that we have 4 councils in Dublin and 1 directly elected Lord Mayor, but Limerick had already merged the councils in 2014, so it was kind of already one unit, and what the challenges we might face are.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a very good, and I think that the fact that the councils were merged in 2014 was a huge piece of the overall back to design. It was part of it was a huge piece of the architecture here that enabled us to come in then. So you're absolutely right. So I agree with you. I mean, you've heard. Graham Doyle was talking about it, and I suppose it came up a bit with Bertie, the whole idea of some degree of federation piece of it, and I think there is a dimension of that, isn't there, in Greater Manchester as well. Again, our experts at the back will have a view on that. But you're right. I mean, the directly elected mayor of Dublin will have to have there'll have to be some kind of architecture pulling the 4 authorities together in some kind of a way, under the aegis of the directly elected mayor. So I think that is something that it's a very good question, and I think it's something that you're going to have to give thought to, because and I think I always find that in design terms, I did say design terms. In design terms, it's one of the obvious things to do is, where is this being done well, and what are they doing? And how are they doing it? So I think you're going to, that's a very, so I think we're going to have to find some kind of and I'd be interested in the expert colleagues on that. But you're absolutely right. It is going to be a necessary piece of the design. And it's something you're going to have you're going to have a view on that. Sorry, folks, you are going to have a view on that. Yeah, really. Because you can't just land a directly elected mayor on top of what is there already.
Thanks, on Table 11 for a great question. Last question, over to Table 10 and Chad.
Who's this? Chad?
Chad.
Hi, Tim. Chad here, table 10.
Hey, Chad.
Really loved what you're saying. You know, the direct-elected mayor should be the heart of Limerick and every part. So our question is, can you give us an example? For example, policing. How the mayor, direct-elected mayor in Limerick will influence on the policing, local policing. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. And I'm encouraged that you think it's good, because that was kind of a concept early on that for us, very important. And I have to say that, and the department and the minister accepted it straight away, that we think that the mayor should be at the heart of everything that affects the well-being of, in our case, Limerick. So thank you. I appreciate that. The policing piece is very challenging. It's such a sensitive issue, and nationally and constitutionally, you know, we've got it's in the constitution. You know, we've the separation between the roles of, say, the guard, the commissioner, and the minister and the department. So it's a very complex base. Now there are joint policing commissions. There's already some architecture, Chad, on the ground here that we think could be built upon. And I did in my consultations in Limerick, I did speak to the head of the Garda in Limerick, the chief superintendent, who's Gerard Roach, who's in charge of the Limerick district. And so I believe that with the will there, we can work out something which gives a greater role for the council and directly elected mayor. But it is sensitive stuff, Chad. It's a very sensitive area, and you can't have something whereby, you know, there's any suggestion of interfering with the operational independence of the Garda Síochána to do their job. You know, so you can see how you're getting into difficult territory. I suppose my most recent experience living internationally was in New York, where I worked with I had good friends with Mayor Bloomberg. I'm not dropping a name there now, but he was actually very nice to me. And so I got to see kind of close up. So by the way, Bloomberg, he was practically Irish, but of course, good Jewish mayor. But you see, the mayor is in charge of the police. So the NYPD is an arm of the council, and the commissioner of police at the time was another good Irish American, Ray Kelly, and whom I got to know. So that's an example of a place where they've done it, and of course in the UK system as well. But I think it's a very good question, and I think that thought has to be just given. I don't have a magic answer there, because I think for us to start for us to go, I'll say this, for us to go straight, a total devolution of policing and just give it, that's a bridge too far. But again, like what I'm saying about the organic, incremental, let's make a start. But without question, the directly elected mayor has to be involved in the policing process in some way. And so we need to build in that. But then maybe you build in that can then grow incrementally over time as confidence is built. Thank you, Chad. Tough question.
Tim, thank you so much. We got 55 questions. We only got through 6 of them. So
I did well.
You did well, and it's the biggest response that we've got so far. So I think it's a reflection of your presentation, the information you have, the legacy that you've left behind. You spoke earlier on about the primary responsibility of human beings is to be great ancestors. The work you've done for the peace process in Ireland, your work in the foreign affairs in the US, and the bridge that you built between those two great nations, and indeed the legacy that not only you're leaving Limerick, but indeed the lessons that we can learn, and the path that you've led in the directly elected mayor for Limerick. We will certainly do our best to follow your example. Could you give, please, a really big bill of us to Mr. Tim O'Connor?
Thank you all.